Okay, having a recap of last week's discussion, so 39 and 40, the two verses that we did. So we have discussed 39 in great depth, and the only bit that we discussed last week, which was the kind of key aspect of this understanding, was the difference between what we would call as law of karma and the law of destiny. So, because of the thought process that is embedded in people belonging to the Hindu faith, there is a very deep sense of confusion that arises because people don't relate to karma as action and reaction or action and result outcome, and they interpret the destiny aspect almost identical with the karma aspect. And the truth is that it is not that there is a very clear distinction between the two, but there's a way in which one can handle or understand both these concepts and not lead themselves into what I would call as getting cornered in some fashion about how one must progress with life, or how must life progress. So why is this very critical to understand that it is like this? Because if you take spiritual goal of life as being the goal, the spiritual goal is to unite with the ground of consciousness, or the basis of all this entire universe of happening and manifestation. So when you say to unite with that truth is the goal, then the question comes, why is it that whatever is happening, and what is the underlying purpose of all the things of change that is evident and visible? Because of this question in mind, all the scripture that has been composed and used to explain what is being seen in phenomenal world is classified under destiny and under karma. And both these words, destiny and karma, in Vedantic languages, in Vedantic terminology, uses very similar terms. So the way karma is interpreted and explained is said that karma constitutes the basis of the individual expressing it themselves as individuals. Not that when they say that karma constitutes the basis of the individual expressing themselves as individuals, it is not talking about pure consciousness, because without pure consciousness, even the individual does not arise. But what is it talking when it says karma is the basis of the individual expressing as individual? They are saying the individual sense of separateness, the individual sense of being bound to individuality is an expression of karma. And when they say this in the Vedantic literature, the fellow or the individual who is very bound to the world and finds it quite exasperating that many of the things that are happening in their lives, in spite of all their efforts, seems to be propelled, controlled by an external force. So this propelling and controlling by an external force starts getting interpreted as destiny. And the word destiny, strictly speaking, in Vedantic languages doesn't have a direct translation. There are other words in Indian languages which are similar to the word destiny, but in Vedantic language there is only karma, there is vasana, and in karma there are three categories. One karma associated with this life of my individuality, one karma associated with potentially future lives, and another karma neither from this life nor the future lives, but an accumulated amount of karma that lies unutilized. So the one that is associated with this life is referred to as prarabdha karma. The one potentially to be exhausted in future lives is referred to as agami karma. And there is a vast amount of karma which is to be exhausted, but not yet assigned, which is referred to as sanchit karma. But if someone were to say which of these is destiny, there is no need to answer that question, because the meaning of destiny means, or the purpose or the way that word destiny is defined or utilized and expressed by individuals is something about which nothing can be done about. That which I cannot change, that which I cannot alter. So that is referred to as destiny. But whereas all of Vedanta is there here only to prove that the individual is free from all the three kinds of karmas, and he is completely imbued with this experience of freedom. And this experience of freedom is also the experience of choice. So this imbuement in the individual of the experience of freedom and the experience of choice enables the individual to pursue spiritual pursuits. Actually, this is the basis why no teacher anywhere in any Vedantic school will deny free will. Because why will they not deny free will? Because they will say, this is your chance, this is your opportunity to make spiritual effort. If you say everything is prarabdha, everything is destiny, everything is karma, you will not even put spiritual effort. You will say, even that has to come. I am not going to do anything. It will happen. So that is very interesting. So whenever you get this questions in your mind about karma and destiny, you have to interpret it as this actual idea of free will, actual idea of choice is primarily to make the spiritual turn, primarily to make your spiritual effort. People interpret it as saying, I want to change my future. People interpret it as saying, I want to change my financial condition from being what I am to something which I am not. I want to change the quality of my life in terms of lesser possessions to more possessions. So that they interpret as free will. Whereas Vedantic teacher will say, if there is any true purpose of free will, is to turn inward and to find your source and get connected with it. That is the purpose of free will. If there is anything else, well, you have to teach me because I don't know better. So teachers will just back out from that point. So with that thought, that is the purpose of this section which Swamiji explained about karma and destiny. The last bit is when Swamiji speaks about the ego being dead in the one who lives in equanimity in all conditions. Now this is another very beautiful, what I would call as the goal of sadhana. What is the goal of sadhana? Goal of sadhana is to experience equanimity in all conditions. But when you experience equanimity in all conditions, it can also be an idea of equanimity which you have cobbled together. But there is something very deep of deep sense of deep meaning in equanimity in all conditions if you don't have to cobble together anything at all, but experience equanimity. To such an individual, if you say, when does such a thing happen to a person, is when the ego is dead and equanimity shines, as if to say, that is the only way. There is nothing but equanimity. You don't make a choice of equanimity. So very often Gurudev used to ask, when you look at this verse of saying labha labha, jaya jayo, then different samadukha, samatvam, etc., you will say, how is it different from a Stoic? You know, there was a Greek philosopher called Stoic, and his followers called it Stoicism. So they have this very strange perception that you must remain fixed and you must remain firm in all kinds of contrary situations. So, but those people are staying firm in all situations, ready to explode sometime. That is not equanimity. That is a struggle. That is a struggle in conditions of diversities, in opposites, amongst opposites. So what is equanimity? Equanimity is a choiceless acceptance. You don't have to choose to make this this equilibrium condition. You get into equilibrium condition because you don't have to choose. So whatever is happening, you're willingly accepting the outcomes, And without making any choice, the outcome is welcome. When you gain that condition, that is called ego is dead and equanimity is experienced. They are not connected. They are just happening almost simultaneously. There is no cause and effect relationship. You cannot say first the equanimity should die, first equanimity should happen, then the ego dies, or the ego dies, then equanimity happens. They will just happen simultaneously. And they are also happening to each one of us even now. We are not observant, that's all. If you are carefully observant in your life situations, whenever you experience equanimity, your ego is dead for that point, for that period, for whatever duration, in whatever exercise, in whatever engagement. When it reappears, you lose your equanimity. So when ego raises the hood, you lose your equanimity. When equanimity is lost, then you say, oh, what happened to that condition? Now you can reflect and say that condition arose because there was a pause in the functioning of my ego. When the pause broke, and or rather the ego revived, then equanimity got lost. So that is one straightforward way of both interpreting, experiencing, and expressing this teaching of verse 39. In verse 40, a lot of teaching goes on about how Vedavyasa is redefining what is the karma yoga, the concept of karma yoga in the language of through the medium of Krishna. Why does he have to make this big attempt? Why does Vedavyasa have to make this big attempt? Swamiji explains that there was a decadence in the way people looked upon the Vedika traditions and the Vedika teachings. That means the teachings coming out of the Vedas. What was the purpose, what was the difficulty is people got totally absorbed into what is called as fulfillment of desires through pursuit of ritualistic part mentioned in the scriptures. Now, why was the ritualistic part even mentioned when the highest goal was told at the end of the Vedas in the Upanishads? Why was it even mentioned? It was mentioned because ultimately the human mind is seeking fulfillment of desires. And fulfillment of desires is what is called as the natural automatic mechanism of relieving a person of his previous backlog or rather backlog of karma. It's a natural mechanism. So to enable this natural mechanism, the scripture said, follow the ritualistic part to fulfill it. Whereas what happened in the experience of the individuals, what happened in the experience of society, people made the ritualistic part the process to be taken for desires that are being manufactured, desires that are being created, desires that are being invented effectively. So when we think of our own lives and when we think of our own experience, last time Ramesh was speaking in the response to the commentary, saying, in my own life, I had a whole lot of manufactured desires for toys. And then after some time, I just gave it up. And I said, enough of toys. Now I want to read books. So manufactured desires for books. Now I want to make relations. I want to have connections. I want to have friends. And I manufactured desires of all that kind. Then slowly I became very materialist. I started developing desires of possessions. So we are constantly manufacturing. Now suppose the scriptures have said, for fulfillment of this desire, do this ritual. Then I will become a very systematic, what I would call as acquirer of various types of rituals to say, if I am having 100 desires, let me have in my pocket 125 rituals so that some 25 are spare for the ones that I not yet manufactured. So we are constantly in this game. Therefore, Krishna and Vedavyasa wanted to create this resurgence of the Hindu Dharma and reinterpret karma, action, as not that which creates bondage, but karma that enables exhaustion of desires without creating new bondage. For that, this karma yoga is presented. And Krishna, as Swamiji says, he presents the karma yoga in contrast to the Vaidika karma. Vaidika karma means the ritualistic part of karma, or ritualistic aspect of the Vedas, given in what is called as the karma section of the Vedas, or the karma kanda. So that part spoke about karma which is fraught with two dangers. One is karma that is left incomplete, and one is karma that is not performed to the standard. They create what is called as pratyavaya. Pratyavaya is some kind of a dosha, some kind of a harm, potential harm, because the ritual has specified that. So you have to do pratyavaya parihar. You have to do the and further actions to avoid this, the negative effect of this action. So it can be, referred to as people taking, what's it called in legal terms, they call it unbailable warrant or something like that. You do a crime and you know you have done a crime. So you go to the court and you go to the magistrate and take a non-bailable, something equivalent to some non-bailable or some warrant, such that if the police come, you can show them the paper, they cannot take you to prison. Till they go to court and say this fellow has got this and we want to put him in prison, he has done this crime, etc. You have to establish it and then take. So till that time you're free. You're free. So this pratyavaya parihara is something like that. But what is Krishna trying to say? Is Krishna is saying actually you don't even need pratyavaya parihara. You adopt the spirit of karma yoga in all your actions and your desires will get fulfilled. And you will not have further bondage. So what the original karma kanda wanted to teach you, you are going to learn it in a different way because I am giving you this teaching. So this is what Krishna's message is in 40.